So what's your podcast about?
Superheroes.
It's a little geeky, but I think you guys are gonna like it.
Try not to be too geeky.
No, I can't promise that.
Should we begin?
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. And now, your hosts, Kelsey Dickerson, Brad Fay, Kate Fay, and Noah Berlin.
Hold on to your butts.
Welcome, everybody. It is time for the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. We are here to talk about episode 5 of season 2 of House of the Dragon. We've got Kelsey, Kate, Brad, and myself, Noah. We're here to recap it with you. We're here to break it down and to give our takes and our predictions for you. So, guys, this season is a little weird, right? It seems like the story of the season is there's all this buildup for one thing that's crazy to happen. The one thing crazy happens, and then we have more kind of slow episodes of people reacting to that craziness. Like, are you happy with that? Are you happy with the pacing of this episode? Or are you a little bit disappointed with that?
Man, that's really tough. Like, 'cause I was thinking it was kind of a lull episode, and I get it. Like, not every episode could be like crazy and oh my God. I mean, a lot happened in this episode, so it's not like, oh, what a waste. Like, there were things happened that like moved the story forward. Like, of course, like I'm sure you'll mention a lot of them in your recap, but you know what I mean? Like, things happened, but like at the same time, it was just kind of like, I don't know, like a slow burn kind of. It seems like every other episode's kind of that, and then we get to the craziness, and then we slow. So it's kind of like they're just like messing with our minds at this point. We're Daemon.
Yeah, we're not that crazy, but
No. I mean, on one hand, it was nice to like have a little bit of a come down from last week because that was insane, and I was like all in my feels and dragon dust. I just needed like a break. But at the same time, it's like we already had a bunch of episodes about like setup, and kind of the whole first season was like setup. So I feel like we should be like action, like getting into the war, which we did last week. So like, let's continue that.
I agree, Kate. Like this, even though there were some things that like moved forward, yes, but like it didn't seem super significant to me. It felt like a lot of filler to me this week. And it's a lot of like the same stuff, to your point, that we've already seen or that we already know or like whatever. And like, yeah, last week it was so like, okay, we're unleashing the dragons. The war has started. Like, I mean, this whole army, like, is right across the bay from Dragonstone. And now all of a sudden Kristen Cole is back. Like, they're not continuing to march forward. Like, you know what I mean? Like this, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me in my mind.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and break it down, right? Because there were a lot of things that happen, as there always are. It's an hour of television that's really jam-packed with some great writing, as always. But whether or not, you're satisfied with that, that's a whole nother thing. But okay, let's break it down with a little bit of the recap. All right, so Kristen Cole, marched the head of Meleys, the dragon, through King's Landing. The small folk are upset about that. They see that as a dark omen. King Aegon, he is fucked up. Nobody knows if he's going to live or he's going to die. His brother Aemon doesn't give a fuck about him. He just wants to rule himself. And the Green Council name him as the regent, to Alicent's chagrin. Daemon is still getting way too much screen time. He's doing a whole lot of nothing other than just tripping out. But he does get Willem Blackwood to commit war crimes on his behalf. So there's that, I guess. Jace gets stir crazy and takes action at the twins. Rhaenyra offers Corlys the position of Hand of the Queen as he is mourning his wife Rhaenys, who passed last episode. And finally, Jace goes to Rhaenyra with a plan to find Targaryen bastards who they could recruit to their side and ride the free agent dragons. So, like I said, a lot of things happened. The plot has moved forward, but yeah, I guess I want to start with this, with our just kind of notes about the episode to talk about what we've talked about a lot this season, which is just like the PR war, because that's a major thing that we're seeing with the small folk and who they support and what's going on and the death of the baby and all that stuff. To me, this was the first obvious misstep from Team Green. The first PR fuck up. And like, that was kind of obvious, right? When they got rid of Otto, they sent him away and Kristen Cole's calling the shots. Side note, what do you think Otto's doing right now?
I know. I was
What's he
thinking about
doing?
that.
Where is he?
He's just chilling with his family. He's on
You go to Old
vacation. Like, what is he
Town?
doing? Do you
I
think we
don't
see him? I
know.
mean, I assume we see him again, but like, do you think we see him again?
Maybe he's with the other son.
Maybe.
Yeah, because like the last we saw him, there was like a couple options like he was like between, right? Like he's like, I'm gonna go do this, and then Allison was like, oh, why don't you go do this? And he's like,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
we just don't know.
he's doing his thing. I mean, he's off screen though. We're not hearing much about him, but it's just obvious that that wouldn't have happened if that was the case. And it was so stupid. We called this in the last episode when we were talking after seeing the preview for this one that we just watched, that like, what a dumb move. We didn't know that the small folk would react the way they are, but it's like the whole thing about Targaryen power and their dynasty is that like they're supposed to be gods. They're the only ones that could ride these dragons. They are bigger than the normal people. They are invincible and infallible because of that, because they have the dragons. And then when they display a dead one like that, they just show that, you know, as my boy Hugh said, that's just meat. You know, they're not gods. So everyone knew it was a dark omen. One person says it's an abomination. One says Rhaenyra will answer this, because of course she will. Like, if there's escalation in any type of war, one place gets bombed, they bomb right back. One dragon gets killed, another dragon's going to get killed in response to that. So the small folks see that. They know they're now locked into King's Landing. Like, they're fucked. They're not getting food because of the blockade. And now they've provoked Rhaenyra. So they're all pissed. And yeah, like I said, it was the first main misstep in the PR war from the green side, at least.
I don't know if I would agree that's the first one. I think it's the first major one that is a lot more visible, and to your point, like has definitely bigger ramifications than just like killing a couple like rat catchers, or like, you know, or like not really giving a shit that like there's no food coming in to everyone. But I mean, it's definitely like all snowballed. It's like snowballing one after another, where it's like these big huge missteps are going into even bigger missteps, like, you know what I mean, which is exactly like what you just like recapped right now. But two, like, in addition to everything that you're talking about, not only is this a sign like, oh hey, like these dragons are not invincible, like the riders that like that ride them are not invincible. Also too, aren't they going to sit there and be like, well, I know that King Aegon went on his dragon, that dragon's not back, but the army is back, like, you know what I mean, like Aemon now is like calling shots, like everything is close, like, you know what I mean, like it is just like such a like a literal firestorm of like the worst decisions that you guys could make. It makes no sense that while Vhagar is already there, and maybe we haven't seen Vhagar's condition either of like if she's super hurt or not, but like Vhagar is like literally right across from the bay. You just killed Team Black's like biggest dragon, and you have like the biggest army right now. They clearly don't have an army, because then it would already be there. It would be across the bay.
Well,
Like
it's almost like none of them has an army too, which is just like also weird. But yeah, you're exactly right, Kelsey. When they shut the gates and they're like, the gates are shutting in the name of Prince Aemon, the Regent, and they're like, Prince Aemon? Don't I mean Aegon? Like, nobody knows.
Literally, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they
mean-
just keep on saying King Aegon? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the whole thing is stupid. The whole thing makes no sense to me. Otto is dearly missed from Team Greenside, I'm sure. Not from me, but from somebody.
Yeah, not from us.
Well,
I love seeing Kristen fuck this up. I love it.
yeah,
He looks fucked up too. Like, he looks like he went through some like PTSD.
He
Like,
saw some shit. I mean, he told
Yeah.
Allison, like, I saw people walking around on
Nope.
fire. Like, he's never seen that before. So he got really messed up from it.
yeah.
well,
and
and in addition to that, I think he's also navigating like how to talk about like what he saw with Aemond, because like not only did he see it, but I'm sure all the like a lot of soldiers saw that too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why it's like there's just no way to control this, like of being like, yo, Aemond, yeah, like burnt the shit out of his brother, and he's probably gonna be dead. Like,
Kristen Cole,
bring all the soldiers back.
yeah, Kristen Cole's an interesting one because he does seem very different. Like, he seemed, I mean, he hardly talked, and it was like they forced him to every time he had to say, to open his mouth, someone like was like, what, you know, what's going on here, or like, what do you think? The hand speaks with the king's voice, like, what's your take on this? But he seems like real depressed. So I mean, Kate, you said it, but like, Brad, what do you think? Where's his head at? Because like, do you think that he's fucked up because of just like the horrors he saw, like bodies turned to ash? Do you think he feels bad because that he kind of failed to protect the king. Like,
I,
where
I
do
think
you think his
it's
head's
a
at?
combination of like all of those things. I think the most interesting, I don't know, like it's weird to me that like he's seen battle. Like I get it, this is different than battle, but it's always like it was weird that like I'm sure he's seen some crazy stuff. He's not like I've been in tournaments before, and it's like, yeah, man, this ain't a tournament. Like I'm sure he's seen like he's beheading people and stuff like that, and then he sees like people get burnt by a dragon and like that messes him up. Like it just seems like weird. Like I would get it again if he had like never been in battle and this is his first time being like, damn man, I now know what it's like to like see bodies in front of me. But he's like, they turn to ash, and it's like, is that really that much worse than like I'm sure stuff you've seen in battle of like people like bleeding out of their necks and stuff like that. So it seemed like weird that he's like that messed up by it.
Do
Even
you
maybe.
think though? Oh, sorry.
No, good.
I was just gonna say, do you think though, like, I mean, like we're talking about like the snowball of everything, like these last few episodes have done a really good job of like putting blood on Kristen and like Allison and like all of their hands of like, their role in all of this. So like I think like a part of it too is like not only is he carrying a lot of that guilt of like we're here because of me and like all this crazy stuff that I've done and like things that I shouldn't have been like a part of or like, whatever, all because like I was feeling like it like rejected by Rhaenyra. Like now he's like physically seeing like, oh shit, this is what happens when like this is what everyone was trying to say and avoid, and like I have played like a major role in this, and it's like it doesn't matter what side you're on, like you're gonna turn to ash. It doesn't matter, like I can have as many swords as I want, but like a dragon coming in,
That's true.
you know what I mean? And then that goes
Right.
back to like when you guys were talking about like same thing with like atomic war and bombs and stuff.
That's a good point. Like maybe this is a wake up call of yo, I could be the best trained dude in the world. I could be the best swordsman in the world. I no longer have like control over my own destiny. Versus he probably thought that before. Like I'm a badass. As long as I like got my sword sharpened and I know my fighting skills, I'm good. And now he's realizing maybe like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't matter how much work you put in, like you're
Like
all
what
the
plan
same
you
when a
have.
dragon swoops in. Like, yeah. So, and I'm glad Noah listed all those points because it does kind of show like things that are like building up on his shoulders and becoming heavier and heavier as time goes on.
Yeah, well, something that I think is central to this season is the relationship between Sir Kristen and Alicent, and I think that to me, I probably did more thinking about like Alicent and her character arc and specifically what happened in this episode than really any other one because I just find it to be, I don't know, interesting, I guess, but like it was crazy to see her feel for the first time like truly powerless. And this it's been building, right? We saw when she met with Rhaenyra in the Sept and she's like, yeah, okay, I'm wrong. There was a misunderstanding, but we're too far gone now. Like they're already marching, the dragons are going, like people are dying, like there is nothing that I could do anymore. And she knew it, but she still kind of clinged on to some power. And this was the first time that she really felt truly powerless. And it just like someone tweeted something about how like her face when she realized that the system and the status quo that she worked this entire time to uphold now is affecting her, because before like she still was kind of ruling in the stead of her husband who was sick, she was ruling in the stead of her kids who were just too young or whatever she can mold, but this is the first time where like no, she is totally being left behind by everyone including Sir Kristen. And so it's another reminder too that even though like yeah there was a misunderstanding, Viserys was talking about Aegon the Conqueror, she thought they were talking about Aegon the Kid, and that was a whole misunderstanding and blah blah blah, but like that's not really the reason why the war started because of the patriarchal society and that nobody would accept a woman. Like that is the reality of it. And when it really hits her that she played a major part in upholding this thing that now is affecting her, it kind of like it's totally her fault, like fuck her, but it's a little heartbreaking. Like you feel a little bad for her.
That was so well said up until you said I feel a little bit bad for
I
her.
mean,
That was super well said up until I'm like, yeah, she's super interesting. That she to me has one of the most interesting stories right now. Like, we talked a little bit before about like we're kind of over the Daemon thing, but I'm like, she could end up anywhere by the end of the season and we wouldn't be. she could be with Rhaenyra at the end of the season, and I wouldn't be like shocked right now. She could end up with Otto, and they're planning their own thing. Like, does she want to abandon her sons? Like, she to me is like really interesting in like what direction does her character go? Or does she just like sit there and take it? Like, I don't think that's gonna be the case, but I don't know where she's gonna end up.
Yeah, the one funny thing that I thought was when she was confronting Sir Kristen, and she was obviously like she was shooting him daggers both at the small council when he didn't have her back, but then again when they were like cutting down the rat catchers and whatever at the gate, and she asks him, she's like, "Oh, so are you only loyal to me at night?" kind of thing, and like she's just getting those "you up" texts at night from him, but like nothing else.
I gave you my handkerchief.
So I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen with her, but like I think that arc, that realization, and maybe just credit to the actress that plays Allison and like her, I mean her acting, but just like a lot of the nonverbal, the facial expressions, which she's done so well up to this point too. But to me, that's like one of the more intriguing plot points of this season.
Yeah. And the directing there was good too. They did like the muted, like you kind of don't even hear what the people are talking about, and it's just showing her like fuck my life. Like,
Yeah, I like that
she's
too.
not hearing them. That they did a really good job of like putting us in her shoes at that moment.
And it was also cool to see the parallel too between her being like shot down by all these men on this council and Rhaenyra facing the same thing at her council. Like, she's perfectly capable of doing all this stuff and making all these decisions, but they're like totally discounting her and being so like condescending to her. So it was like really interesting to see like both of them kind of in the same position.
And but I
Yeah,
think that's a
really cool.
perfect parallel, like which is a theme of the entire like the entire show, the entire series is like the parallel between that relationship. Obviously, they were best friends. Now they're not. Shit's going on. One's the queen, one's a dowager queen. Like, but like the parallels of what they go through throughout the entire series is cool to see.
Yeah, it is. I really like all that and how they're doing that.
Yeah, and on that point too, like showing all those parallels, it just in my opinion, it further shows like just how useless and pointless all of this was. Like, you know what I mean? It's like they're fighting for like the same means in different ways, but it's like useless on both sides, it seems. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I have a lot more to say about Daemon, but there's one thing that kind of goes into this portion where like he feeds into that exact same thing that we're talking to also. And I was grateful that we had this one line, basically, this one scene where he actually told us what we wanted to know and that we've been wondering from him for a long time. But while talking about Rhaenyra, he says to Alice, he says, she cannot succeed even if I willed it to be so. The people who support her will not be led by her. They look to a man for strength. And he basically says, like, he says, when I take King's Landing, Rhaenyra is welcome to join me there and take her place by my side, king and queen ruling together. But he's basically saying, like, he agrees with all of them. Like, it is not going to work with her. And it's fucked up. That's her husband and uncle and all the other shit. But he is totally part of this entire wheel that we've been talking about too, in the society and the way things are. And you thought that he's maybe above that or better than that because he's on her side and supporting Rhaenyra, but like he's obviously not really.
Which is so weird because like I felt like he was like all in last season. So it's just it was weird to see him like kind of make that change, but I wonder if it has something to do with like obviously their fight that they had before he left and then just him being psycho in Harrenhal and just being like having his mind fucked with. I wonder if that has a little something to do with it too.
Yeah, like they definitely are doing a lot better job of showing his like dive into madness than they did over like a few seasons for Daenerys. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, it's like, is this truly how
That's a
he
good point.
feels and like his like subconscious like coming out? Or is this like Alice like really fucking with his mind and like all these things happening and he just like it's like this cloudy version of him. Like, you know what I mean? It's hard to know like what is truly like we had all the of our suspicions, but it's like you can't even fully trust even what he's saying sometimes. You know what I mean? Even if it's coming out of his own mouth.
I think that's a very good question, and I would like to know Brad's take on what you just asked.
I was gonna say, who's the dude that's like, we have chicken? The guy who's always looking at Damon like, yo, you good? Like, who's that dude again?
Simon Strong.
Our boy, the Castellan, Sir Simon Strong.
So does that guy, is he really like innocent? And he's like, hey, are you good? Or does he know? Is he like the dude who messes you when you're with you when you're high? Like
He's like,
it seems like he's like egging Damon on, like, ooh, but like he knows, like, ooh, we're getting this guy good right now. He's tripping. Or is he really like innocent to it and doesn't know? Like, I love watching like his reactions to like, you good? Like, you okay over there?
that would be a hilarious turn of events if it turns out like him and Alice are in this together. They're like both just fucking with him. They're drugging him. They're just like messing with him. They're putting him into funny positions. And like every time he trips balls, they kind of just look at each other like, yeah.
I try to see there's a point where like Damon's talking to Alice, like when he's like building all this stuff, and then Simon Strong comes in and he like turns around, but like they perfectly place him to where it looks like it covers Alice, and like I don't see if she like leaves or not. So I'm like, is he also seeing her? Does he know like how is he not being affected? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how is he not being affected by her? So it's like this whole thing is like, is she even actually physically there, or is it only for? I just have so many questions about that, like, and like the magic and all that stuff. Like, is she actually there? Is she like really an owl that everyone else can see, but like he sees like the human? I don't know. Or is it like the warg thing, like, you know what I mean, where it's like she's like going through like other channels and like other things. I don't know.
You're bringing up a lot of good points, I think, Kelsey. Can you imagine, first of all, I just can't get past this. I need to address this before we move on. Can you imagine what was the final season of Game of Thrones? What, like 7 episodes, 6 episodes, something like that? Like, imagine if they gave the screen time that they've given Daemon in the last 3 episodes of him just like going crazy. If they just gave that screen time to Daenerys, and like how much better like it would have been from the response after seeing what she did. Ugh, that's a shame. Sorry. Anyway.
Well,
Yeah, I agree.
one true queen.
Well, we'll talk a lot more about Daemon here in a bit, but moving on to some of our other favorite characters from Game of Thrones, we see the Freys. We go back to the twins in the crossing, and we see Brad, your boy Walder Frey's what, great grandparents, something like that, maybe.
Oh boy.
So I bet you were excited about that. So it was cool to see, like, anytime they do tie-ins like this, you see places that are very pivotal in Game of Thrones, and you see it in this show. Like, I enjoy that, at least. So it was cool to see the phrase.
And we were there, Noah.
We were there. We
Saw
were
the
there
train.
in Northern Ireland. We sure were. But so did this remind you guys? Because for me, when they're sitting there bargaining, they're across the table on the bridge, and Jace is there speaking on his mom's behalf, speaking on his uncle's behalf / stepdad's behalf. And you know, they're kind of negotiating. And like, for me, I was just waiting for the phrase to say, okay, you gotta marry one of our ugly daughters that no one wants to marry. You know, and put him in a hard position, just like they did with Robb Stark. Like, were you getting vibes like that at all?
I was too distracted by thinking of what a dick move it was, having lunch right in the middle of the bridge, and all the servers, every time they come out to refill your water, have to walk all the way out to the middle of the bridge and walk all. I'm like, what a bunch of assholes. Just like, have lunch kind of towards the end of the bridge. You had to do it like dead center.
Walter Frey was your boy in Game of Thrones, so how do you think that's like a dick move? Like, you
Such
left
a
Walter
Frey
Frey
move.
asleep.
Such a Frey move.
That is such a Frey move. But also, if you remember that last season, in the second to last episode, when Lucerys is about to get killed by Aemond and Vhagar. Before that, though, he goes to Storm's End to try to negotiate with Baratheon. And, you know, he's like, hey, just reminder, you know, you bent the knee to my mom. Like, hopefully you'll be on the good side. And the dude's like, fuck you. Like, this guy said he'll marry my whatever. Like, they are giving gifts. They're doing all this shit. Like, you're bringing me nothing. And he's like, well, I'm already betrothed. He was so nice. Gonna be betrothed to Rhaena over there, our girl Rhaena, who's at the Eyrie in the Vale. but like that is still a major thing of trying to like create alliances and bargain off marriages like that. So I just literally, that's all I was thinking about, is that he would be forced to, you know, forego Bela and have to marry one of their daughters. But anyway.
Yeah, that didn't even cross my mind. That's a really good thought. Like that is really good, but I didn't think of that. I was too busy thinking of like, man, this is where the red wedding happened. Like I was going
Yeah.
through all that rather than thinking like what might happen next.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Bela, who is Jacerys's betrothed, she's awesome. Like she is dope. Now the two of them, I think Jacerys and Bela are, now that what's her name, Rhaenys is dead, we have a new couple that is the healthiest couple and the most supportive couple, which is Jacerys and Bela. But she's dope. Like she goes and rides her dragon. She does reconnaissance. She finds out important information. She's the only one up to this episode on Team Black that was doing anything. And she really kind of puts her grandpa Corlys in his place a little bit in a time that's really hard for him. He's really, I mean, he was a mess. I thought that the actor, I think Steve Toussaint is his name, who plays Corlys, did a fucking awesome job in this episode with his just emotional, his face, everything he was doing, to show how much of a wreck he was. But she kind of steps to him a little bit and I don't know, like basically tells him he's fucking up and like gears him to what she wanted him to do anyway. So I thought she was awesome. Any impression on kind of that scene and the conversation between the two of them?
I loved it.
Yeah, that was like one of my favorite scenes of the episode, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of like talking during this episode, but that scene was just really good. I don't know if it was the actors, but there was just something about it that was like more engaging than I think than a lot of stuff we might have seen during the episode.
It makes me feel like Bela should have had like a stronger, like she should have had a stronger position, like in all of this, like whether she's like at the small council table or like whatever, besides like being sent away, which we had our conversation about that before. Like I thought maybe it was like almost Rhaenyra being like, oh, if something happens to them, then like Daemon's gonna understand how I feel, like type thing. I don't know. I don't want to believe that about Rhaenyra, but I'm like, why hasn't she been doing this with more people? Like, you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden now, like she's really been in like behind the scenes and like in the shadows. And I know she's been sent away a lot and been doing like recognizance, like you're saying, like and all that stuff. But like, I don't know, like it's arguable that Sir Corlys is like one of the strongest characters in House of the Dragon. Like he almost always knows exactly what he wants. He makes a lot of really great decisions. Like everything is very calculated with him. And so it's like, if she can do that with him, like, why isn't she like closer to Rhaenyra and like saying more stuff to Rhaenyra and like all this stuff? But I will say, I loved when he's like, and it's like so funny because like think of like calculator whatever, and this was like opposite of that. Like when he's like, I would name you like my heir to like his place, and she's like, bitch, like I'm fire and blood. Like you need to go get some salt and sea.
Have fun with your
I
drift mark.
loved that.
I thought that was dope. Yeah, me too.
killed it.
I
Yeah.
loved that.
It was
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean, but Corlys, like, I mean, I don't, it is like he is, I think, the most accomplished person potentially in the entire realm, like as a warrior, as a sailor. Like they have the biggest navy. They are the richest family, the Valerians, not the Targaryens. Like he's gone on and done like legendary things across the world in places no one has done before, getting riches no one's seen before. Like this dude is the fucking man. And it was kind of cool too, though, where when Bela was chronicling a lot of the things he did and the places he went, the treasures and all that stuff. And she's like, yeah, I wonder if they all know, all those people that know about the legendary sea snake, like if they know that it was all for her. And it just like really drives home their relationship, which I just thought was awesome anyway. But that was cool. But the way she talked to him, like it was super like respectful. But when he was fucked up and he was like, you know what? I just want to get out of here. I want to sail west and have adventures. And she's like, yeah, you've done that before. And all the people that count on you have been hurt and you have been hurt. Like, if you don't want to fuck with Rhaenyra, then go join them in King's Landing. Like, but she's like, you can't think of this as the fact that Rhaenys, your wife, was something that was taken from you that you don't have anymore. Like, we all mourn her. We all we all handle this in our own way. And she went out the way that she wanted to go out. She chose to go and engage in that fight. She died the way she wanted to die, and that's the way that I want to die. Just like you're saying, Kelsey. She's like, I'm fire and blood. I'm not salt and sea. So you can find someone else to do that.
Yeah, it was a really neat conversation between like grandpa and grandchild. Like you wouldn't think that a granddaughter would speak to her grandpa like that, but yeah, you're right. It was in a respectful way, but it was in a very stern way too.
No doubt. So did you all catch that, moving on a little bit to our favorite bug girl, Helena, the queen of the realm? She was, I think, in 2 scenes this episode. One where they brought in that like rinky dink casket box fucking thing with the king in there. And she just kind of like looked at it in the hallway. Was like, oh, okay, what's going on? And then when she talked to Aemond and she asked him point blank, was it worth the price? Like she knows all the things. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's so like, do you think Cole saw what happened and is insane? Because like we didn't see like I don't know, like he looked up and was like, oh, and like because it could easily be played off like, oh, that happened during the fight with Rhaenys. Like there was another dragon there. Like it's not like, okay, how was he burned by dragon fire if Aemon had the only, like it could be lied about. So I'm wondering if like Cole saw it. Or like, you know what I mean? It seems like this is really apparent to a lot of people, which is like interesting to me.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different factors. Like, I mean, the way that Aemond is acting, like he doesn't give a shit. He has Aegon's dagger. Like, I mean, there's just a lot of different things. But also, I mean, they're not outrightly saying it, but I think with like his actions, like when she was like, what was Aemon's part in all this? And he stops. Like, I think they're doing things like a little bit more subtly in that last one, which I liked. But he absolutely knows, like, you know what I mean? Like he walked up on Aemon's, like Aemon didn't give a shit. He wasn't trying to help his brother, like, you know, all these different things. Like, and I mean, this is not like the first thing that like Aemon has done to try to like down cut. Like obviously it's the most radical one, but like this has been ongoing their whole lives, that like they're trying to like undercut each other in like different ways, like, you know what I mean? And like Aemon is very clearly very smart and very calculated and wants to be in that position. He has made that pretty clear.
Yeah, they're acting as if like, yeah, I get it. Like, and I get it, it's kind of apparent, but you would think like Aemon came back and like pulled the little folded up note in his pocket and be like, all right, I happen to write up a plan of what to do should this situation ever arise. I'm gonna become king. You're gonna do this. Like, I'm like, I mean, he got voted in by the council. Like, it wasn't even like
he didn't say a word.
I'm doing it.
That's true.
And he didn't say a word the entire time when they were bringing that whole thing up. He did not say a word until he stood up, picked up that little ball, walked to his other side to the seat, and put it back down.
I mean, that's another one. Like, you know, we talked about Allison earlier. Like, Aemon's storyline is like really interesting. Like, cut down the rat catchers. I'm really interested in seeing like what kind of ruler he is. Is he going to be the one who like wants the throne, but then finds out he has to deal with all the bullshit politics and is like, I don't want to do this. I just want to fight. Like, is he the one like careful what you wish for? Is he good at it? Like, maybe he is actually good at it. Like, does he want to go out and fight still? Like, obviously I'm interested in seeing too if like they talk him out of, just like they did with the king, you know, with Aegon, but obviously that was because he wasn't as good a dragon rider. But like, should you have your king out there on the battlefield, even though he does ride the biggest dragon? So like, there's like a lot of like potential roadblocks from him that I'm really interested in seeing like how he handles.
It is interesting though, you're saying like I mean, it's like this huge pendulum swing in my mind, like going back to the PR thing of like being like, he's like, cut down those fucking rat catchers. But then in his like, in the same breath, he's like, close the gates. Like no one can come in or out while there's already like pandemonium, no food. Like, you know, everyone's freaking out. Like they're losing like, you know, a lot of the ground with like the small folk. So I don't know. I mean, he's obviously clearly shown himself as like a great war strategist, and he could potentially be a good leader, but I think he's just so, I mean, well, also too, what do you guys think? Daemon was like, oh, you think I'm gonna be like a bad king? Like if that one-eyed motherfucker like gets on that throne, like you're gonna wish it was me. Like, you know what I mean? So like he sees like the vitriol and the like what's the word? Like, like
The possibility.
the viciousness,
Consequence, yeah.
yeah, in Amond as well.
See, and Kate and I debated this last night, so I really want to know your guys' thoughts. I'm not buying that whole like, uh-oh, Aemond, like I'm like, dude, Aegon was practically supporting a child trafficking ring. Like, he was a terrible person. Like, if you went through the list of like things he's done, he's awful. What is literally the worst thing Aemon's ever done that made him seem like a monster? So I'm like, it seems like the show's trying to get us to be like,
That
oh
was
my
my
God,
piece,
now they're
Kelsey.
in real. What?
I
What
was
do you
like, he killed a little kid
No,
and
but
That was but he said he didn't mean for that to happen. Like Aegon enjoyed that kind of stuff. Like he would go and watch children fight each other to the death. Aemon even like didn't even try to play it off as if shit happens. He was like, yo, I didn't mean for that to happen.
kind of
And he
he kind
didn't.
of did in some of them. Yes, he did. Like, but when it came down to it, when people were asking, he was like, "Oh no, it was like an accident. Oops, like whatever." Like, and I mean, he literally just burnt his fucking brother. Like, I think like that shows more like it's tale as old as time of like rich, powerful people like do horrible things to like people that they don't give a shit about, like the common folk or whatever. Like that's like tale as old time. It doesn't excuse it at all, but that's like more common than like being like, I'm gonna fucking burn my brother to a crisp and like I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna like blah blah. Like I think he has definitely shown his viciousness, and also too like him being like, we're gonna shut the gates. Like that is like a huge like implication of like the type of ruler that he is gonna be.
You're right. What you're saying is right. But Brad, I agree with you. Like the way the show is setting this up, they really, and it's everything you say, Kelsey. Like they're heavy-handed with stuff. Like it's not as subtle. It's not up for interpretation as much. Like how many times have we heard Alicent over the course of this season say, "Oh, you know how he is," or well, we know what Aemond is. Like, you know how many times they say that kind of shit. Um, like, and then Allison again in the small council when they're like, oh no, he's the next in line, he should be the one, and she's like, well, his lack of restraint has already cost us dearly. Like, they are really hitting us over the head with the fact that like this dude is a wild card, he'll do some crazy shit.
It's a lot of words, not actions.
but
Like
so was
Aegon, we've
Aegon.
seen
Like
it.
he was, I mean, he was an idiot. Like he didn't know what he was doing, but I would say he's a wild card too. Like
I think that
he
they're saying is
went
that
out
like
to go to battle, like
but
without.
I think that the argument is that Aegon's he's not ambitious like this. Like he didn't want to be king. Like he just wants to be a fucking idiot with his friends and go do some degenerate ass shit. Like Aemond wants to be king and like is fine being brutal as fuck, and they know that whether he has done it yet fully or not. And I think that's the difference.
But they were
Yeah.
already at war. You know what I mean? Like what? Like you know what I mean? Like I'm just not getting like a big like pendulum swing, which it seems like the show wants. And it seems like you said, they're doing it with words a lot. And I thought it was really interesting that at the beginning, I always watch like the recaps. Like, yeah, sometimes it's helpful, but most of the time I'm like, yeah, I remember all this. I don't like need the recap. But I thought it was interesting in the recap for this episode, they showed that one clip when Aegon was like, oh, we must treat the people well. And I'm like, why did they show that clip? I'm like, they're really trying to all of a sudden like turn it like we forget about like all the awful stuff he's done, and now we're supposed to be like, damn man, he was just like a kid that kind of wanted to prove himself to his mom, and then she shit on him. I'm like, he was a
I just,
pretty ruthless person.
In
I
episode
mean,
one, he wanted to give all the sheep back to that farmer guy. Don't forget
yeah, and
about
like
the
the
nice things.
blacksmith.
Don't
Yeah,
forget about all
He's
the
our
nice things that your king
MVP.
did for you.
I think it's showing the type of ruler is like that he was more open to helping the common folk and that he understood, like, regardless of like what he was doing. Yeah, like he was a fucking idiot, did like weird shit. Like, who doesn't in Game of Thrones, I guess. But like, it just goes to show, like, he was like, before like his son got beheaded and like the craziness like got out of him, and he had no restraint in that way as a ruler. Like, and like, you know, showing like his mommy issues and stuff. They all have mommy issues, but like it was showing that he understood the importance of like giving to like the small. I think it was showing more, maybe not the pendulum swing for Aemon per se, but I think it was more of like the difference between like the rulers for like small folk and like the ruthlessness there. I think. I don't know.
I think the gate closing is like a good point. Like, and that's what I'm saying. I'm interested in seeing like what he does that maybe like changes my mind a little bit and be like, damn man, Aegon kind of was better. Like right now, I just haven't seen that. Like if I'm looking at both their like things, I'm like, yeah, they both really suck. Like
Well,
one's
yeah.
not like,
Yeah.
oh shit. Like it seems like Aegon was a terrible person season 1, and season 2 they tried to make him into a little bit more of like a Tommen. Like, oh, he's naive, he doesn't get how to do it. Just seems like inconsistent. Like I'm all for like complicated characters that do some things you like, some things you don't like no ruler is like all great or all bad most of the time. So like I like that the show shows you like, oh, he does these things that I agree with. Oh, I don't like how he treats those people though. But it just seems with Aegon, it's been really like inconsistent and back and forth of like guy who wants to watch the poor people fight each other to death, but then is like, we need to replace this man's sheep. Like it just doesn't seem like those things come from the same character.
Yeah.
Argument.
I think that's well said. Well, I want to move into our awards for this episode. Before we do, is there anything specific that you want to talk about that doesn't necessarily fall into those categories before we move to the MVP? No? Okay, cool. So our first award is always the MVP award, the big winner of the episode or the most valuable player there. It could be interpreted any way that you see fit. So Kelsey, I want to start with you. Who do you have as the MVP from episode 5?
I have a double MVP, and I think it's Alice and Simon Strong, because Alice is fucking up. She's fucking up Daemon left and right, and he just keeps on going for it. And like she is like, she made him fuck his own mom in his dreams and go down on her. Like that's wild. And then Simon Strong, either he's unaffected by like this magic or whatever, but also too, he's gotten to the point where he's like, Daemon is off his rocker talking to me like this and talking to all these people like this, like, and he's like his facial expressions and the things that he's saying and like how he was addressing like the river folk, like, you mean, when they were there and stuff like that. Like, I just like, I love him so much. He's like such a diva. So I think they're my MVPs. And then after you guys talked about that scene with Bela, she would be like she's an honorable mention for sure.
We talk for a split second about how terrible Alice's wig is. It's really fucking, I don't know if you noticed it, but I didn't notice it until I watched the episode for a second time. I can't get over how terrible it looks. It looks like it's like the only one where I'm like, that looks so unnaturally. Like, pay attention to this.
Okay.
We'll talk about it next episode. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm in a weird mind space like Daemon as well. But pay attention to her wig next episode. It was like really looked out of place.
But maybe she's supposed to be wearing a wig. Maybe she, like I said, maybe she's like the Red Witch, where she's like, you know, like a different
Magic doesn't do it then?
Yeah, I know.
No, maybe
Yeah.
she's like, she got alopecia like Jada Pinkett.
I was gonna say for like that time period, I'm like, maybe she has a bomb wig.
No, you better hope Will Smith never hears this.
Keep your name out her mouth.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, I like that. I like Simon Strong though. Alice don't like as much, but that's okay. Kate, what about you? Who's your MVP?
I think I had the same one as you, Noah, so you can bounce off this afterwards. But I had my little baby model, Jacaerys, who has the most beautiful face I've ever seen, probably. But he's like actually getting stuff done. Yeah, seriously. He got the well, they're like grandpas in the north, but he got the grandpas from up north. And then he, got the Freys on their side. He had to promise a lot of shit for it, but he still like is getting stuff done. And then, like you said, at the very end too, like he kind of came up with this idea of like, well, let's look into our family trees and see if there's anybody else that could ride this unclaimed dragon that's right beneath us. That's huge. So I think he's actually getting stuff done. Unlike,
And also he's serving, girl. He is serving looks.
he's so pretty.
There
Yeah.
was this meme, really quick, sorry, no, I don't interrupt you, but there was this meme where it was like Aemon and Jacaerys have no business doing like looking like models, like as they're off like trying to commit like war crimes and like do like war and stuff, and they're like it's like
There's so many of like the two of them compared to
like
Zoolander and Hansel. Like,
Hansel.
there's like the four of them. Yeah. I mean, Kate, look, we talked before we started recording here. I totally agree with you about this. Jacaerys is the clear MVP for me. I mean, Bela has been doing shit, but Jacaerys really is the only one on Team Black doing anything this season at all other than Bela. Like, again, he went, just like you're saying, he went out and got the support of the crossing and the phrase, which is huge. He didn't, in my opinion, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but didn't have to give up too much. He maintains a supportive relationship with Bela, which now is the healthiest relationship that we have seen in the show. And he comes up with the idea about the dragon seeds and all that stuff. But also, bigger than just the idea was the way that he tactfully approached it with his mom, which I think is also huge, because he was basically saying, okay, there's a shit ton of Targaryen bastards and we need to bring them into the fold. But he did it in a way that, like, without saying the word bastard, which is like very taboo. Like, obviously his mom is very against that because of all the trauma and the shit that everyone was saying when all the way since she started having these kids with what is his name? Harwin Strong, right? And so he says specifically, we could find those of our line who never ruled, who married into other houses and their children born with other names. And like, that's just such a way. And it took me a second to really understand what he was saying, but he's saying like, we have a shit. I mean, he's like, look at me. I have fucking brown hair. It is obviously, I'm not a full-blooded Targaryen. Like, it is obviously I am a bastard and I could ride a dragon. So there are other people just like me that could also ride a fucking dragon. And if our side is like employing this strategy and the other side isn't, they have two big ass fucking dragons, like you're saying, right under them right now. So it's very smart of an idea. It was even smarter the way, and just like, I mean, the smartest two people in this fucking show, Jacaerys and Bela, the way that both of them were able to communicate things to their superiors in ways that got them to buy into what they wanted to do was, I thought, pretty brilliant in this episode.
He's like, out there somewhere is a potato stealer who's gonna get on this dragon and really help us out.
Now she's like, you want us to prop up Malisters or whatever? He's like, yeah, literally whoever. Doesn't fucking matter.
Anybody.
Doesn't fucking matter.
Why did they not mention Sea Smoke?
What?
Why did they not mention Sea Smoke as a dragon that needs a rider too?
I think they only mentioned the two that are like the biggest. So maybe like there are definitely more than just the two, but I think they were talking about, we have two right now that could fight Vhagar that are big.
Is Sea Smoke not?
No, I think Sea Smoke's just like Cyrax. Like yeah.
Oh, okay. I was wondering, I was like, they were literally just talking about how a dragon doesn't have a rider. So I was just wondering.
On that note though, it was interesting, like going back to like the river run thing with the phrase, like when you see the wide shot and you see how tiny Jacaerys's dragon is, like Vhagar would have like been in that whole forest area, and like it's like she was like the dragon like blended in, like you had to like really look for that dragon, and so that like for me, like you know how big Vhagar is, but like that for me like really drove home, like they have really baby dragons. Like
that was really smart.
That's funny that you say that, because I thought they were in the Vale and that was the baby dragon, and I was like, oh, baby dragon,
little baby. Yeah,
but
I think those baby dragons are like actually baby, like this big.
Yeah, but also the fact that, you know, every time they talked about Vhagar 3-4 times throughout the episode, the black side did. And they were just like, they talk about Aemon and Vhagar like that's the boogeyman. And they're like, oh, what are you going to do when Vhagar comes hunting for you? Or like, we have nothing to match Vhagar. What are you going to do when Aemon wants to kill you? And I mean, they're doing a really nice job of like propping him up again on both sides. And it's all the way the writing is and whatever. But they're on both sides, like, you know what he's capable of. Like, you know what Aemon is. And then like, shit, you want to start shit with Aemon? Like, how are you going to do when he's coming after you with Vhagar? Like, So they're doing a good job of really building that up.
Agreed.
Brad, is Jacaerys your MVP as well?
I had Aemon, who we kind of thought, just because, I mean, he obviously came up as much as you can come up over the course of a single episode of, 2 episodes ago, at the start of the last episode, I don't think we would have predicted, oh, by the end of the next episode, he'll be, sitting on the Iron Throne. So he came up real quick. And just from the standpoint of like being really interested in seeing like, you know, because there's no one that counsel him, which is like really interesting. Like even when you had like Joffrey, you had Tywin in his ear. When you had like Aegon, you had like Otto in his ear. Like who is like telling Aemon like, hey man, you need to, you need to hear the quarrels of the villagers. Like no one is like, I don't even want to say stepping that I do, but no one's even going to give him good advice. So it's going to be like really interesting. Like the hand is Cole, who we talked about, like doesn't say anything about anything. They have like the one maester there who seems like he's kind of just like, yo, I just want to skate by and not cause any like trouble. I'm just trying to survive through all of this. Like there's no one to tell Aemon like any advice at all. Yeah,
Well,
especially
Allison
like if
could.
Allison's checked out.
Yeah, but Allison
He
could,
could,
but
but
you see
he wouldn't listen to her.
exactly. You see the contempt that he had. Like when she spoke up for herself, everybody else was like, "Nah, it's got to be Aemon." And then he got up, he picked up that fucking ball, and he fucking stared at her like, "Yeah, that's what's up." And then went down and started giving out orders. Like he's not listening to her anymore.
Yeah. He also seemed really disgusted when she was like in there with Aegon too, that he was like, why the fuck, like, why do you care now or whatever? Like he just seemed really like just so over her.
Yeah, that dude is wearing the dagger. Like power has gone to his head completely. And now that he has it, he's in that seat. I think that's why we might now see him become something where it might go crazy a little bit.
The dragon unleashed.
Yeah. Okay, well, moving to LVP, the loser of the episode, the least valuable player. I think a lot of us might agree on this one, but I feel like Brad, you're always like the dissident a little bit, who does your own thing, has your own opinions. So who is the loser for you?
As much as I like to march to the beat of my own drum, it probably is going to be the same as you. It's just Daemon's storyline is just kind of dragging at this point. There really hasn't been like a lot of development there, it seems, in a while. And especially like of all the major characters, he's the only one there. Like his story should be progressing. It's not like they have to. It seems like he's been in a lot. Like I almost have rather like that's fine if he's been there X amount of episodes, blah blah blah. But it seems like we cut to him a lot just to be like, ooh, he's still seeing things. Like nothing really major has. I guess I mean, and it is kind of big. Like we now know his motive. Like he wants to sit on a throne and is like, yeah, my wife can join me if she wants. So like that is a big step forward, but it just really hasn't seemed like entertaining from my standpoint. And I wish maybe they showed more of, and Noah, you'll just know this more of like from the books or whatever. Like it seems like he's spending a lot of time for something we haven't seen a big like reason to fight for. Like, like I don't see this badass army. Like, when Daenerys goes to get the Unsullied, we're like, holy shit, like, yeah, think of if she like gets this group on her side. Like it seems like he's in this like rundown castle and is like really investing a lot of time, and we're just being told like there's a lot of big army, but I'm like, yo, show us. Like, stop telling us and like show us.
Okay, so I have a few things. I totally agree with you. I think that the show, I don't understand why, but the show is really propping up, just like they're propping up, Aemon and other things. They're propping up Harrenhal as like, I mean, they've said so many times, even from last season, like the Riverlands are the key to this war, and Harrenhal is the key to the Riverlands. Like the jewel in this middle of the Riverlands. Like they keep talking about how important that shit is, and it's like it doesn't have money, which they established before, but then they showed it again in this episode, and it doesn't have its own army. So all it is just a large castle that is capable of garrisoning garrison being able to garrison a large ass army, but they don't have a large ass army. They don't have anybody, right? So what the fuck is the point of the fucking building to garrison them if they don't even have the damn army?
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. It makes no sense. And the first thing I was going to ask you before I went on that tangent was, what is he doing? What is he doing?
Nothing.
Kelsey,
He's
what is he doing,
renovating.
Kelsey? What's he doing?
He's having some good dreams. He's on some acid, like, you know, he's like, okay. Also, yeah, what the fuck is he doing? But also, besides like making wrong missteps, even when he is trying to progress, like going to the people and like doing all those war crimes and stuff. Also, too, it seems that like so many things are being communicated really quickly, like through like Raven or like whatever, like all these things. Like it seems like it just happened yesterday in King's Landing, and then all of a sudden, like Rhaenyra's people already know about it, like you know what I mean, within like a few days and stuff. Like, how does no one know that Harrenhal is like a fucking piece of shit? Like, no one, they're gonna arrive there and all those things you said. Like, this isn't even, you can't even house anyone here. There's no water. Like, there's like nothing here. Like, there's no armies. There's not even a roof. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do people not know that? I
think they do know it, but they're no one
just want it.
But it's just weird. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand. Like, we talked about it last episode when we did the podcast. If he was doing a tour of all the Riverland houses, trying to win them over, pick up their army, go to the next one, add to that numbers, add to those numbers, pick up their army, just like Kristen Cole was doing up to this point, and then all the final stop is Harrenhal, where then he's garrisoning that big ass army that he has amassed. Cool, but he's not fucking doing that. So like all he's doing is chilling, going to sleep in that weirwood bed, having weird ass dreams, doing weird ass shit. Like he's not doing anything. I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's so weird too. Like you said, Noah, like he's like taking his time to like chop wood and like renovate the building. But it's like you don't have anybody coming. Like you need to go out there and get these people. He's got like one house with him. And now he's got, to Alice's point, this other house that he's like committed all these war crimes. They're going to hate him. They don't want to fight for him. They're not going to be good fighters. Like he ruined their lives.
And even that, like
a cool time moment, you guys.
Those are the two houses that we saw early in the season getting that huge battle where so many people died. It's not like either side has a huge army that's really going to make a big difference. So many of them died killing each other earlier in the season. So it's
That's
like,
true.
why are they establishing that? Like, that is his one thing he's trying to do, is just get this one side on his, like, or one the house on his side. I don't really know what he's doing.
It's weird. It's just like, and it's just such a weird like turn of events, because last season, like I loved Daemon. I thought he was so great. He was all for Rhaenyra. He seemed like a really like pretty smart guy with like good strategy for things. And it just like has disappeared totally.
Yeah, and he has such a high opinion of himself. Obviously, he always has. But in like this episode in this season, but like definitely this episode, it just shows that like nobody gives a fuck about this dude. Like no one gives a fuck about him. Every time he's like, "Oh, call me your grace," or "Call me the king," and he's like, "Well, you're not really. You're kind of the king consort." And he's like, "Well, what is consort?" Whatever. But like he goes to these river people, and he's like, "Hey, my dragon's hungry. You better fucking bend the knee, or you're gonna get burnt." And they're like, yeah, you burn us because we don't care about you. Like, and then the river people come in, they wake his ass up, they demand to talk to him. He's like, "Well, let's show you some manners to your Targaryen lords." And they're like, "Fuck you." Like, the one lady calls him an interloper. The other one's like, "Yeah, dragon or no, we will not raise our banners for a tyrant." Like, he's just losing all over the place. No one fucks with him. No one gives a shit about him. And that's starting to include me because I'm so fucking tired of this plotline.
Honestly, like it's a continue, like we talked about this like in the first or second episode, like it's a continuance of like he's fucking things up on behalf of Rhaenyra, like left and right. Like the whole like Prince Jacaerys thing, or Jaehaerys, like you know what I mean, like the beheading and all that stuff, like that is what has escalated everything. Like you know what I mean? And like to your point, he's not doing anything besides like being that like weird TikTok wood chopper guy.
And it pisses me off too, because like you were saying, news is traveling so fast. Everyone knows all these things that are happening. Like even Daemon in Harrenhal knows that like, oh, Aegon's fucked up. He's not long to live. Like all this shit. Everybody knows everything, but he's not communicating anything back to Rhaenyra and Dragonstone. So none of them know what he's doing, which is like, what the fuck? Again, what are you doing over there? And they're like, well, we need an army. We don't have an army. We're hoping Daemon's raising an army. Like, why would they even hope that? The way he left in episode 1 or 2 or whatever, like he just left out of nowhere. He never even said where he was going. We assumed it was to Harrenhal, and it was. But like, what leads you to believe he's doing all this stuff? And really, everyone's thinking, well, is he raising an army for himself or for me, Rhaenyra? So just it's all. I don't know why they're relying on him at all. I don't know why they're showing him so much. And we haven't even talked about really his visions of his own mother, who he didn't even know, who died when he was 3 years old, having sex and going down on his own mother because he just needs to hear that he is the favorite son. Like that shit was fucked.
Literally one of the most graphic like oral scenes that they have had like in all of Game of Thrones. Like it's so crazy. But going back to that really quick before we dive into this, because that is like really disgusting and gross. Also, like, I mean, they're having all these back and forths of like, we should send a dragon and like go like send a message or like go like do this and like retaliate and like, or like even when they were going back and forth about Rhaenys going to like the actual war front, like Jacaerys kind of alluded to like, maybe I'm gonna go visit Daemon like and see what the fuck he's up to. To your point, like everyone's like sitting here like being like, oh, what is he up to? No one knows. We haven't heard from him. Like sending a raven is not going to do anything. He's never not going to answer me.
Yeah.
Go fucking check on that motherfucker. Go to Harrenhal. If Harrenhal is so important, it's so important, then fucking go there. And if he's not doing his job or if he's not there, then you know how important it is, or you're saying all this stuff, but you're not doing anything about it. Like, it's...
You're exactly right.
Not answering his calls.
But Rhaenyra's like, oh, I can't. She keeps being like, oh, I'll go on my dragon. I'll go to battle. Everyone's like, no, you can't fucking do that. You're the queen. You're the tie that binds all of us. You cannot fucking do that, which is true. But it's like, bro, you're not doing anything. You know, you're tracking the army. You know that we said last episode that they said there's 1,400 to 1,500 members of this army, and 900 are dead, as according to Chris and Cole in this episode. So the vast majority, 2/3 of their army is dead. Just from last episode, right? We know that, and we know they went back to King's Landing. So fucking Rhaenyra, instead of just sitting your ass there, go fucking talk to him. What are you doing?
That's a really great point. I didn't even think of that, but I'm like, she's like itching to do something.
She wants to do something, do it.
She could go see go put him in his place, go talk to her. And Simon Strong, I think, would get along so great. They'd be a great pair. Like, you're totally right. Now I'm angry. Now I'm mad.
Are you standing for them?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah, it is like the people that we all liked the most in the first season, the people that you are the most interested in, the most central characters in the show, obviously Alicent, but no, it's Rhaenyra and it's Daemon. And those are the people you want to see. You want them to have the most screen time, and they are giving us what we wanted in season 2 with screen time, but neither of them are doing shit. This entire, like I said, the last episode, the two people I think that I'm the least interested in the entire show is now Rhaenyra and Daemon, and that sucks.
Yeah, especially for Rhaenyra. Like, this is like her thing. It's her birthright. Like, and it's about like, you know, putting a woman on the throne, and it could be so cool, but she's literally not doing anything.
Yeah, but that's why I was hyped for Jace. The fact that Jacaerys is ignoring her, doing things, and like, I mean, you can't really fault our fallen prince, young Lucerys, Luke, who got last episode or last season. But Jacaerys, he went there, he got the support of the Eyrie, and then went up to the north and got the support of the Northerners and the Starks. Like, he's just winning. He's the only one that's doing anything and contributing to the entire cause. And now he is going to the Twins, getting the crossing, all good there. Like, he comes up with the idea, just like we were saying. Like, that's just reinforces the fact that he's a winner, because he's the only one on their side doing anything.
When Jace left, his original destination was Harrenhal before he was like, nah, I'm just gonna go do this instead, right?
Well,
He was going back and forth, I think, right?
He said he's like, I'm gonna go to Harrenhal, but then Bela convinced him, like in that conversation, they convinced him to change it up.
Couldn't he have done both? Like, just stop by Harrenhal on your way home.
Yeah,
Yes.
probably could have.
Yeah.
Like
They're both in the Riverlands.
over there,
Like,
like, why not just stop there and like?
Yeah, but maybe it was like momentous enough. Like he wasn't just getting supporters. Like it's a big deal to like get the crossing now, because if tomorrow the Northerners show up, now they have admittance. Like it's a bigger deal. He might have, once he got that, then he got to go back and tell everybody. I don't know.
Yeah, it just seemed like kind of like, hey man, it takes like 10 minutes to just fly over Harrenhal and see if anything fishy's going on.
I mean, dragons are really slow, so
they're slow. And I have a question. Like, this is very stupid, but like they didn't have Google Maps back then. How the fuck does everybody know how to get everywhere? Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to Harrenhal, then I'm gonna go to the Twins, then I'm gonna go up to the north. Like, how the fuck do you know how to get these places?
paper maps, bruh.
Oh my bad. This is before that. Is MapQuest before?
Well, they don't even need to know. The dragons need to know.
Well, either way, how does anybody know anything?
Maybe they're like elephants, and like the dragons just like they
They're
can
born with
navigate.
it.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody
Dragons
have
migrate every winter?
Does anybody have an LVP that is not Prince Daemon / King Daemon / King Consort Daemon / Your Grace?
I debated Allison just because I'm like, you idiot. Where'd you think this was going? Like, you're really surprised by this? Like, it just seems like she always is just so dumb and naive. You know what I mean? From like every step of the way. Like, so it just seemed like another like tally mark of like dumb, stupid ways she thought the world worked. And I'm like, you're an adult now. You haven't like pieced this together. Like, they don't give a shit about you.
She's like the people that like vote against their own self-interest, and they're like, wait,
100%.
that includes me too.
You
It's
don't
like,
care about me?
fucking
That's
idiot.
exactly what I've been thinking about this whole time. Like,
That's exactly, which is
women
more
specifically. Like,
but that's why it's not unrealistic. It is very realistic.
Good point.
happens every day.
Well, yeah.
I think it just really quick. I think it can be argued that Rhaenyra is also an LVP. This you guys already kind of talked about it, but I think like calling her out specifically, like I think in that last episode she was an LVP.
Also, Kristen Cole, just because he sucks and I hate him.
And his hair is stupid.
It really is. Like, we got to make this motherfucker less handsome because he's
him a bowl cut.
it's worse than a bowl cut. It's like, I don't know what it is.
It's a Caesar. It's a Caesar haircut.
Oh God.
All right. Well, moving on to our third and final award for this episode will be the cringe moment, the cringiest moment of the episode. I feel like there was an obvious one that I did not pick, but I picked another one that is also obvious. So anyway, Kelsey, go on with yours because that's the one that everyone's thinking.
I mean, Daemon going down on his mama. And it was not only, I think also too, like when I was looking at her, I was like, oh, I had no idea who she was. I don't think anyone of us did when we were first seeing her. I'm like, she's also like the most beautiful woman that they've shown in this whole series, I think, in my opinion. And then it was like, what is going on? I thought I'm like, was that Alice with a wig? I'm like, she looks different. Like, you know what I mean? And then when it's revealed that it's her mom, and it's like some of the most graphic sex scenes, at least this season, especially like the going down on it. And I was like, that is just too much. There was another meme, not to be like the meme queen today, but like there's this other meme where it's like everyone has to draw a line, and it's like when it's talking about it's like nephew and aunt, and everyone's like, oh, and then it's like a niece and uncle, and it's like, oh, and then it's like brother and sister, and like, oh, and then it's like mom and son, and everyone's like it's like it's progressive. It's like, even like Game of Thrones fans have a line.
Yeah, I thought it was at first, until they revealed it was the mom, I thought it was Emma, who in the beginning was Viserys's wife. So like Daemon's brother's wife.
It looked like her.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
That's
exactly
who I thought it was. And when she's like, oh, Viserys is gentle, but he wasn't meant to be on the crown. He didn't have your constitution. You're my favorite, like that kind of shit. So I was like, oh man, he wanted to fuck his brother's wife now.
Yeah.
And you found out it was mom, and I was like,
But I don't think that's coincidental, because maybe Viserys went for someone that looked like his mom. Maybe they both have a weird thing, because at first I was like, yo, what are the odds that like looks like Viserys's wife? But I'm like, maybe he married someone who looked like their mother.
White chick with long white hair, maybe they all look alike. I don't know. Does anybody have anything else for a cringe moment other than that?
I just had the fact that like a lot of promises are being, I know this isn't like usually where we go with cringe, but I was kind of cringe when like things are being promised out to the phrase in terms of, oh, we got Harrenhal, oh, Daemon's gonna love you guys, he's gonna bend over backwards for you guys. And it does give me a lot of Red Wedding vibes of like, you don't promise things out to the phrase and then not deliver on them. That doesn't really go well. So I was kind of cringing during that scene of like easy Jace, like slow your roll, maybe, like you're getting the phrase hyped up and you're not going to be able to like deliver on what you're promising. If they allow you to pass through and you don't go on your word, how are the phrase going to respond to that?
Yeah, there is history about it. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking similar, but again, I was thinking of it more in the context of like a marriage proposal than what it actually ended up being.
Yeah, that I didn't get. Like, once you said that, I was like, oh yeah, that 100% seems like where that would have gone had I thought of that. I'd be like, oh, this is obviously, and it still might. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe they're like, so we can't promise you Harrenhal. Maybe that's their next. Yeah. Like maybe they say, well, okay, you promised us Harrenhal. If you can't deliver that, marry my daughter.
Yeah. The other one the only other one I had was the peeling of the melted armor off of Aegon's skin and then like showing the popping of the leg back in. Like that shit was fucking disgusting. And just like he reminded me like you cook and you put in the oven with the tinfoil or on the grill and throw some Pam on there, some grease on there, and like that gets stuck to like, and they're just peeling it off. That's what it reminded me of. It was disgusting. So that was my cringe. I'm like, ugh, they went straight in for that, just peeling that armor off of that, and it's bleeding. Ugh, that was disgusting.
And the
noises, that was terrible. Well, before we close out tonight's episode from episode 5 of House of the Dragon season 2, let's talk about what to watch for. Like, what are you guys excited about? What happened this episode where you're like, damn, that's something I want to pay specific attention to moving forward? Like, what about you, Brad?
I mean, Alicent, like, we talked about Aemon for sure, but Alicent, like, would any of us be surprised if the season 2, like, finale is, her with Rhaenyra, Like, I don't think any of us would be like, no way, like, so much would do that, like, that wouldn't surprise us. It wouldn't surprise us if Otto, meanwhile, like you said, we haven't seen him. What if he's raised like a decent side? What if he's got like a lot of people siding with him on things? And, like if Alicent finds out, maybe he's like, yo, I promised you, if you marry this person, we're going to get this army now. Like maybe she would go for it. Like she has a lot of different ways she can go. And I'm kind of excited though, like that I don't have any idea what they're going to do with that character.
I like it. What about you, Kate?
The only thing I have, and this was like small, so I don't really know like where it's gonna go or if it's gonna end up being big, but it actually aligns with like the PR war that we've been talking about in every episode. When Mysaria sent the servant girl, I'm not sure what her name was, but she actually goes to King's Landing and meets I think her name is Diana. It's another, like, she was a servant for Aegon, and then she was a servant in the pub. Like, she was doing all these like terrible jobs.
Oh, is that who it is?
Yeah, the one that Aegon
smacked her ass.
And she had to take the Plan BT and stuff. So anyway, so those two are meeting, and I'm just like really curious to see like how that's gonna happen. I feel like it's just it's a really good time for the PR war because the small folk are they're seeing a bad omen with the dragon, and so they're so like kind of disillusioned with stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what they start talking about with Rhaenyra.
Thanks for reminding me of another terrible thing Aegon has done that I didn't even have on his list. That we're like, oh no, not Aemon. Like not the guy who's been loyal to one hoe his whole life. Like, we've got like this terrible monster now versus the raper guy. Like, thank you for adding like another thing that I
Neither of
forgot
them
about.
are good. Like they're both terrible.
One seems a lot worse as of now.
Smaller scale worse though. Small scale worse versus potentially massive. I know we talked about it already. Kelsey, you have anything to watch for that gets you excited for future episodes?
I actually do. And these are a little bit wild cards, and it's also kind of going back on watch outs that you guys have had in previous episodes. I think we need to watch out for that blacksmith. Like, this is the first time that the lighting, like he's been outside and like you see is how
His
light
hair.
his, and it's not gray, it's
Yeah,
white.
yeah.
Like, it's not gray. And so like in other episodes, it looks great. Like the lighting is off, he's inside, like, you know what I mean? It's like, what is it? And they're talking about the bastards and like, going to find people, and like, he's obviously a strong dude, like he's obviously like trying to get his family the fuck out of there. And then two, like you guys brought this up in the episode before the last, like Renice was talking with Corliss and about like, you need to raise him up, and like, he doesn't deserve to like be treated this way. Then the last episode, like, you know what I mean, like he's talking about he's wanting to find like an heir. And so I think Alan is going to be the heir to Driftmark. So those are my call outs for this one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I have one main one. It's basically surrounds everything you said. Like, it's they're not stupid. They're not just throwing in these characters that are small folk just to show us how this is impacting the poor people around King's Landing. Like, each of these people are very important and will be. And now that they established in that last scene with Jacaerys and Rhaenyra, excuse me, about the dragon seeds and all that and needing to find people to ride dragons, like, okay, you got Alan and his brother Adam of Hull, right? They're obviously bastards of Corliss. They have established that already. They don't have the hair, but they've established it, just like you're saying. I love that prediction about him being the heir to Driftmark, because I didn't even think about that. But they established this episode, they need an heir, right? So it's not just the dragon, it's the heir to Driftmark. You've got that guy Ulf, who was in the brothel a few episodes ago, who was saying straight up that he is a bastard. And the bastard brother of Daemon and Viserys, like, he was talking about that. They established this dude. And then the guy Hugh, who, yeah, we didn't realize that his hair was like that, but yeah, he has white fucking hair. And they haven't established any kind of bastard things there, but 100%, because why else would he be important? So I could see all of these guys riding dragons, being an heir to something, or playing a pivotal role. 100%, Kelsey, I agree with you.
Man, that's so interesting the way we take different things from scenes that like you mentioned the fray, like being promised, like, like promising out a kid to get wed, and I'm like, damn, I didn't even think of that. But you not thinking about like an heir to Driftmark. I thought that scene was like heavy-handed when Corliss's granddaughter's like, it's not me, but maybe there's someone else out there. I was like, come on, like, this is so obvious and over the
You need
top.
someone that knows the seas.
I'm just thinking dragons. I'm just thinking dragons. That's
Yeah,
why.
yeah. I bet it was so obvious to me that I was kind of like, does she know? Maybe she knows and is like hinting like, yo, if there's someone else you might want to reunite with out there.
Someone you should have been a little bit better of a daddy for.
And that Christmas card, life is short.
You know what? This isn't like a watch out, but you know what I wish? Like, there's all these dragons and stuff, and you know all these cool sigils, like they're like they have like the seahorse and stuff. Like, it would be so cool if there was like a magical, like huge seahorse, or like huge like sea monster or whatever that they could control. I wish it was kind of like that.
Like a kraken.
I was gonna say, like, the Greyjoys got mentioned once this season.
And they did, your boy.
Not as much as they should be.
All right, guys. We'll close it out. But is there anything else that you want to talk about from episode 5 before we move on? All right, beautiful. Well, everybody, that is going to do it with the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, talking about episode 5 called The Regent of House of the Dragon. We will be back next week to talk about episode 6. And remember, we have done breakdowns for every episode over the course of the series of House of the Dragon. We've also done ones from the MCU, from Rings of Power, and all other kinds of nerdy shit. So be aware, you could check back on our channel and check all that stuff out as well. as well as the Geek and You Shall Find documentary that is there for free as well if you want to check that out, which I highly recommend you doing. But please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that, and we really appreciate your support. Anyway, see y'all next time, week 6. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by Superhero Faces. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Superhero Faces, and on Instagram at Superhero_Faces.